says that it's streaming now on YouTube. I don't ever really know. So I'm going to start. Hi, I'm Terry Watkins with SpinFrogs, and welcome to another episode of the Terrific Tips for Business. Why terrific? Because I'm Terry. You can't spell terrific without Terry. Hello. I am so glad that you're taking the time to be here with us today. I have a very special guest, and I know you're like, wow, two in a day? It's super cool. Now that I've got this live thing figured out, we can do multiples. Yay. So now I have my totally awesome therapist friend, Jonathan Yatsky, and he actually went to Guilford College too. We graduated like a year apart from each other. I just think that's the coolest thing. So
Absolutely.
Jonathan is a therapist. He's a life coach and a public speaker. He holds a master's degree in counseling psychology and has a thriving private practice in Pennsylvania. He's built an online community of people who want to make their relationships the best they can be.
Mhm.
Now you know why he's on the show, right? We love bringing in these subject matter experts to talk to us about challenges that they've seen and how they've overcome them. And this is going to be really juicy. I'm excited that he's here. He hosts a weekly live discussion on Facebook where he shares actionable tools that we can use in our day-to-day lives. And during non-COVID times, he also leads a self-empowerment multi-day workshop, relationship seminars, and other really exciting things. Jonathan uses unique combination of psychology, life coaching, and gives people the opportunity not just to be the author of their own lives, but also the editor. And we talked a little bit about this concept from other guests that I've had on the show over the year. So here's somebody who gets to kind of tie this all together for us. Jonathan loves helping people in their relationships the most, whether it be their romantic relationships or their business relationships, because we all need a little help there sometimes, or their relationship with themselves. Jonathan gives people a space where they can feel safe to open up and communicate about where they need support the most. And then he gives them the tools that actually work to help them move forward into building and creating that life of their dreams. He's launching a brand new online relationship seminar later this month and is so excited to give people the opportunity to take the relationships to the next level, whatever that looks like for them. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Jonathan to our show. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've been talking a lot for a minute. So why don't I turn the stage over to you? Tell us a little bit about like how you got into this world.
Okay, yeah. So, as Terry said, I am a therapist, life coach, and public speaker. And I got into this because ever since I was very young, people used to ask me for advice. It was something that they did. Even at the age of like 7, people would come up and say, "So, how do I fix this?" And it's like, okay, well, let's think about it. And it's like, as a 7-year-old being approached by an adult saying, hey, like this is something we should really be looking at. I soon gained a lot of tools and skills. And as I found going through my educational career, that was the place where I seemed to generate and be kind of directed towards the most. So for me, part of my background is I have learning disabilities. So I have dyslexia, dysgraphia, and ADHD, which has made my educational career a little difficult due to the fact that sometimes, when you're reading something and you realize you have no idea what it said, or the plus sign that you thought you were doing the equation with turns into a multiplication sign. And when it's 3 plus 4 equals 7. When you don't say 7 and instead you say 12 because you thought it was the multiplication sign, you are what they call wrong. And so I got really good at being wrong a lot of the time. And so I had to develop a lot of skills and tools just for myself to be able to get where I wanted to go. And then what I found is that as I was getting older, I was able to share these skills and tools with other people, and they really got great bang for their buck and actual actionable items that they could use in their lives to make their lives the best that they could possibly be. So I then went to school, went to graduate school, and now here I am with my own business. And like you said, I'm on every Monday and Thursday on my Facebook Live channel. giving people more tools so that we can all take our lives to that next level, especially our relationships.
I love it. And that's so interesting that you knew from such an early age and other people observed it in you. So they
Mhm.
kind of encouraged and supported this inherent ability that you seem to have
Yeah.
with showing and supporting and assisting other people with different directions. So
Mhm.
being diagnosed with some of these challenges with dyslexia, what was the other one that you said? I've never
Uh,
heard of before.
Dyslexia, dysgraphia, and ADHD. So basically,
Dyslexia, I've never heard of before.
yeah, all of them mixed together just makes it so that reading anything is really difficult. So sometimes it makes the words move on the page. Sometimes my eyes will lose focus and they'll jump around to different places on the page, or sometimes even just the reflection, the slight reflection of light on the ink of the page can actually cause me to lose focus and my eyes to jump around, which means I may read the same sentence over and over and over again, or a P may turn into a D, may turn into a P, a Q, a B, because things are just moving and changing on the page. It also has made music and reading music particularly hard, as many musicians have tried to attest when they try and teach me. They're like, just play the notes. I'm like, yeah, but the notes are moving all over the place, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, it's been an
Interesting.
interesting journey.
Yeah, so I've never heard of that before, but I imagine that really caused some unique challenges for you,
Yeah.
not just through school, but even in business life as well. So, what did you do? What was something that you discovered really helped you kind of move through some of those challenges to allow you to be your best self?
Yeah. So one of the things that I kept encountering over and over and over again, especially, and it's interesting because this is one of the biggest things that people constantly come forward with when it comes to self confidence, when it comes to building yourself up, is oftentimes we allow the things that people tell us to affect us on a deep emotional level. So for me, it was teachers, right? Ever since the second grade, I've had teachers telling me, like, there really is no point in getting an education, right? Like, don't spend too much extra time, don't spend too much extra energy on Jonathan because he's sort of all over the place and he's sort of just, you know, especially being a tiny child, a little frantic. And especially when I was in high school, it really hit a fever pitch where I had to make a conscious choice to not only be the author of my own life, but also the editor of my life. And I got to choose which stories got to define me. Especially, I had one teacher who was, she was definitely one of those teachers that impacts you, sometimes not always in the best way, but that's the thing, is that people come into our lives, they say things, and those things linger with us and can inform not only how we make business decisions, how we make relationship decisions, and also how we make life decisions.
Gosh, that's so true. I guess that's why Maya Angelou said people don't remember what you say or what you did, but you always remember how they made you feel.
Yeah.
And I guess that's so true, right? Like we don't even pay attention, but the good teachers, the bad teachers, because there are some bad ones out there.
Mhm.
The good parents, the bad parents. I
Mhm.
mean, no matter who you are having an impact on that child.
Right.
So that's kind of shocking though that teachers were just like so willing to write you off so early.
Yeah, I had a teacher, and this is probably one of the biggest challenges that I've ever had to face, especially in my development of myself. Was I had a teacher once? It was a math teacher, of course, because math is just so much fun. And she called me in, so I handed in my homework. She called me into her office during our lunch period, and she said, "What is this?" And she held up my homework. I said, "Well, that's my homework." And she goes, "No, it's not." I said, "No, no, it is. My name's right there. It's right there." And she goes, "No, this is trash." And she threw it away. And I was like totally floored, because what she didn't know is I had spent probably 4.5 hours writing, rewriting, getting it wrong, having to do it again, right? Recognizing my mistake, crying about it, yelling about it, tearing up the homework sheet, and then having to tape it back together. And I finally handed it in, and she said, "This is trash." She said, "With work like this, you're never going to go anywhere. You're never going to do anything. There's no point in you even finishing out your high school career." Um,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and I was just, it was like being punched in the gut to a really bad extent, because in that moment, it was like I was being told that I was not worth it. I was being told that I was not good enough, that I was not powerful enough, that I was not capable enough.
Mm.
And you know what? I could have lived my entire life with her being able to, with that voice in my head saying, you know what? You're never going to do it. You're never going to amount to anything. Don't even bother. But I was unwilling to do that. And so I came up with actual skills and tools to like not only build myself up, but also come to a place where I could be at peace with not only my strengths, but my weaknesses.
Wow.
It's helped me move forward.
That's impressive because so many people do. Like, we live in this place of this terrible thing happened to me. Like, we've got these trigger warnings now for
Mhm.
people. And do you think from your professional background, do you think that this concept of trigger warning before you say something that could trigger somebody, do you think that's actually helping somebody, or do you think that's actually holding them in this place where kind of makes them feel incapable of moving past it at the end of the day?
Well, that's actually a really interesting point. One of the first lives I ever did, and for anyone who's interested, just go to Jonathan Yatsky on Facebook. All of the videos are there. You can find it. Is the importance of struggle. We in this culture and other cultures around the world, we have this very negative way of being around struggle. And so what ends up happening is we then believe that if we have to struggle, it's a bad thing. When in reality, us having to struggle is a growth opportunity for us to grow to become bigger. It's us seeing this hurdle and then having to try and find a way to get across that hurdle. One of the things that I use, and it's interesting. I was talking about my math teacher. I, I really did not like math, and I begged, tears running down my face, begged my mother or father to write me a note to get out of math, kind of like you do to get out of gym. I was like, if you just write this, I won't have to take it. It'll be fine. It'll be good. And the thing about triggers is the trigger is a trigger no matter where you encounter it in your life, but you can encounter it when it's this big, or you can encounter it when it's this big. And
Mm.
that is actually a huge distinction. One of the things, and I was actually telling someone about this earlier, is like, it's like kicking a can down the road. If you have a can, like a bright, shiny can, you throw it on the dirty ground and you start kicking it. Well, guess what? Every time you kick it, it gets a little bit dirtier. It gets a little bit messier. It gets a little uglier to have to deal with. And lo and behold, the more we kick it, there is a 0.001% chance that someone somewhere is going to pick that can up and throw it away for you. The problem is, though, is that if our patterns don't change, that can's going to show right back up. And so we can either pick it up now when it's small, easy, digestible, or we can wait until it's this huge mountain that we must overcome. And then that's when we choose to deal with it. And if we do that, we have a long road to go to dealing with that can. For math, it's like if I had said, I'm swearing off math after subtraction. And then in high school, let's say I have to take the SATs. I now have to make up 8 years of math
Yeah.
just to do it. And it won't work well. So sometimes it's important to allow people to struggle so that we can get past our triggers and become stronger and more capable, because it's not survival of the fittest. It's survival of the most adaptable.
Ooh, I like that. Survival of the most adaptable.
Mhm.
And that's so good because it really it does describe the that if we can't figure out how to get through that challenge,
Mhm.
we don't learn tools.
That's right.
We don't learn techniques. And so while you might not get through this challenge because you were protected, you were saved from it,
Yeah,
that challenge, like you just said, is a repeatable offense. It's going to show up in a different way later on, and it'll show
totally.
up in a different way again, and it'll show up in a different way again. So
Yeah.
it'll seem like different instances on the
Mhm.
surface,
Yeah.
but when you dig deeper, it's actually the same thing over and over again because you were saved from it the first time. You never developed
Yeah.
the techniques that you needed to get through it.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because, I remember my father, he pulled me aside right after that math teacher scenario had occurred. And he said, and he has the same sort of issues that I do. And one of the things he said was, you know what? Each and every one of us is a unique person. And we were all dealt a hand of cards. Some people have a winning hand right off the bat. Homework, school, business, relationships, they all come easy, but don't worry, because somewhere along the line, their growth opportunity it's gonna be there. It's gonna show up. For you, it's here. Let's handle it now. Your hand for education may not be a quote unquote winning one, but that doesn't mean you can't succeed. And so what I teach people to do, and this is true with relationships, it's true with business, is that you're absolutely right. We fall into the same patterns over and over and over again. I had someone come in and they said to me, I have now dated the same person in a different body 4 times.
And that happens a lot. Like my single friends have experienced that too. Yeah.
Right.
We
And
hear
it's
it
like,
all the time.
right. So it's like, well, okay. So instead of just pointing the finger at them saying, well, like it doesn't work, dating's a sham, I don't believe any of it. It's like, well, maybe what we should do instead is look at what is it that we are bringing to the equation and where we find the attraction, because something along the line brings us back to this lesson again and again and again. And only by being able to get through it can we find something different. For me, in my education, but I mean, this is true for your business, it's true for your relationship, is you have to find point C. Point C is really important. So we have A and we have B. And the majority of people can walk from A to B just fine. It's a straight line, right? So let's say from a homework perspective, let's say you get a book and you're required to read that book. So at the end, you've read it. Unfortunately, for someone like me who really struggles with reading, who really struggles with sort of that focus, that may take me 4, 6, maybe even 7 times longer than it would take someone else. And so I have to find something that suits not only my strengths, but acknowledges and accepts my weaknesses. And therefore, that's point C. That's up here. For me, it was audiobooks. So when I had a book I had to read, I got the audiobook because anything I hear, I remember. But that helped me get to point B because this road, the straight line from A to B, just wasn't feasible for me in a reasonable way.
I love that. Point C. We have to find point C. There's always a way around, through, over, under, whatever obstacle we have. I love that the beauty of the world that we live in is that we have audiobooks. And that's a possibility. Could you even imagine being in the situation that you were in, 40 years ago without audiobooks?
Yeah.
What would you do?
I would sit there and be like, you read this to me. I'm hiring you to read me the book. Okay, good.
Very good, sir. Thank you very much. Right. So, okay, that's a great tip. Finding point C. So what process did you go through to discover your point C, figuring out what that was?
So part of it is that in order for me to be able to address point C, I need to do 2 things. The first thing that I need to do is I need to engage myself with what I call the what if trap. Ooh. So the what if trap is something that every single person on the planet does fairly regularly. It's when we look back at memories and things that we've done in the past and we ask ourselves the shouldas, couldas, the wouldas, how it might have gone if we had just stood up to that person or asked that person out, or, went and invested all of my money into, Zoom before, COVID. If I just done that, perfect. And when we do that, what we actually ended up doing is we create a false reality, one where now all of our focus, all of our energy is on what we wish would have happened. Unfortunately, wishing, wanting, desiring, begging, and pleading isn't actually going to change the thing that we need to look at. And so we need to address the what if trap. Here's what's so, now what? Because when we do that, then we actually get a much clearer, much more discerning view of the situation in front of us. And from there, then we can go to the second part, which is to be really honest with ourselves. Again, if we're being really honest, what are our strengths? And more importantly, what are our weaknesses? Because maybe right? Like, let's say you and I are starting a business, Terry, and let's say I am notoriously bad with numbers, hypothetically. And you're really good at numbers. Well, guess what? Maybe I'll let you do the numbers thing. I'll do something else. We can both carry equal weight, but we're acknowledging, you know what? I'm good at this, you're not, and vice versa. But it's only if we're really willing to look at, okay, this doesn't work about our business. This doesn't work about our relationship. I was talking to someone earlier in the week and they said, this problem keeps showing up. And I said, well, have you talked to your spouse about it? No. Well, what do you mean no? Well, they're just supposed to know. Well, okay, how? Well, they can see how upset I'm getting. And it's like, okay, but that's so vague. Now they're playing a guessing game of, 100 million thousand questions of what is it that bothers her? And that's a really hard, it's like, I've never seen someone within the first 5 questions just hit the nail on the head because it's not possible.
I've heard those stories. There was somebody that was on my podcast some time ago that had mentioned the Christmas game. And every year at Christmas, they pull out all of their ornaments and they play the game of which ornament came from who. Oh, they weren't on my show. It was a podcast I was listening to. I just remembered. Uh-huh. And they had said they play the game of which ornament came from who brought us this ornament. And every year, the husband is wrong every year about where those ornaments came from. And it's like, but at the end of the day, like all that really matters is that obviously it had sentimental value to you, that it came from those people. Uh-huh. It didn't obviously have an emotional value to him. So he's not going to remember. He's never going to associate. Don't get mad at him for it. Just be like, okay, whatever. It's a fun game for me.
I think my favorite one, and this is something that I encountered way back in the day when I first started my practice, was I had a wife come in and I'd been meeting with both of them for a while, and she wanted a session all to herself, and I said okay, and so she came in and she said, she looked very upset, and I said, what's going on? I think I want a divorce. I said, whoa, okay, that's big, that's huge. And she goes, yep. I said, can I just ask why? Like, we've been working on things, we've been doing things, we've been coming together about things. Why now? What's come up? And she goes, you won't believe it. This thing bothers me so much. I hate it when he does this. And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking like, man, this is really juicy.
What's he doing? Is he picking his toenails at the kitchen table? Like, what's going on?
Chewing with his mouth open and food's just coming out all over the place. And she goes, it makes me so mad. And I'm like, okay, what is it? She goes, when he unloads the dishwasher, he puts the cups right side up. I was like, okay, yes. And she goes, and today I found a bug in my cup. I'm like, go on. And she just looked at me like, and that's it. And I was like, so let me get this straight. Your husband.
You want to end your relationship because you got a bug in your cup.
Because you have a bug in your cup. And I said, and she goes, he's been doing this for 8 years. And I was like, so have you mentioned it? No. And that seems to be the biggest hurdle is communication. Because at the end of the day, whether it's your business, your relationships, whatever, you have to be able to communicate, right? And what happens is when we don't, that spark, that feeling, that intensity, that heat when we get annoyed or we get sad, right? So that tightness and heat in our chest or the feeling of sensation like we're going to cry. If we don't address those feelings, the spark gets bigger and bigger and bigger until, as we can see in this example, it was just going to emulate the relationship, just totally blow it out of the water. And why? Because we didn't communicate. We weren't finding common ground. And she was expecting that he was going to read her mind. And so lo and behold, week goes by. They come back. They're together. They're laughing. They're smiling. They're this. And I said, okay, well, what's going on? We're clearly in a very different place than we were last week. And she goes, When I brought it up to him, he said, "Oh, I didn't know that bothered you." And he's now turning them right side down. Fixed.
But I think part of communication and what makes communication good, I was talking with my mentor, Nancy Matthews, about this earlier today on another episode. And we had talked about the idea of being willing to listen for understanding. And there's this component of understanding that has kind of devolved in our world. And I think that ties back to being honest with ourselves. We're very much in a world of distractions.
Yes.
So do you have a tip for helping people to tap into their truth so that they can start to have better communication? Because we can't have better communication with others if we're not having good communication with ourselves first.
Totally. Yes. And this is a really good question. This is something that I have talked to lots of people about, because you're absolutely right. One of the things that's really important for us to remember is that there are two types of truth. There is lowercase t truth. Lowercase t truth is our perception of what's happening. So let's say all of the listeners and you and I socially distantly watch the same movie. Each and every one of us is going to walk away with a different thought, a different feeling, a different thing that we noticed or a thing that we missed, because what speaks to us from the movie in this case is something that sticks out to us due to the way our life has been, due to the experiences that we've had, due to our thoughts, feelings, fears, anxieties, worries, concerns, the things that make us happy, the things that make us sad. And that's what makes up our our lowercase t truth, because it's not the whole truth. It's just part of it. And each and every one of us has a lowercase t truth. Then there is the capital T truth, which is what actually happened. And no matter how many times we watch something, no matter how many times we look at something, our own thoughts, feelings stop us from being able to be truly objective. And so we are never ever going to get to capital T truth. But what happens is this, and we're seeing this more and more nowadays, is that people get so behind and sort of defensive of their lowercase t truth that the understanding between people starts to break down. And when the understanding between people starts to break down, our walls go up. And what happens when our walls go up is now we have our emotions sort of inside of this contained area, sort of festering like bad food, just getting a little bit stronger, a little more impassioned, a little more rejection, a little more rejection of the other people's viewpoints. And this isn't to say that they are right and we are wrong, or that we are wrong and they are right.
Or the other way around.
Or the other way around. But it's the idea that within each of us is some thoughts. And really, what most people want is to be heard.
Yes.
Oftentimes, I say this to people all the time. Thoughts and feelings are different. I can't replace your brain and your heart in your body and fill your brain up with blood and start pumping it and expect to get good feeling out of it, right? Same with your heart.
Why not, Jonathan?
I don't know. They tried it once. It didn't go well. So messy. The CPR was just all over the place. But that's the thing, is like our feelings are important. They're natural. Even before we had language, we had feeling, right? When let's say a caveman, they had their baby pet mammoth. And you know what? One day it's cute, fluffy, stubby-legged, tusks, adorable. And you know what? One day we see a velociraptor has eaten our mammoth. We don't have the words to express it. We're not like, curse you, velociraptor! Curse you to hell! No, we're not doing that because we don't have the words. But we are going, Aah! Why? Because we still have the feeling. But feelings aren't always rational. They are valid, though. And each and every one of us has thoughts and feelings, worries or concerns. Instead of invalidating them, we should be inviting them in and having the discussion. Because when we hear each other, then it's okay to agree to disagree, because
Mm.
that broadens our horizons. It takes down those walls and allows us to be able to communicate with each other in a way that makes sense.
So good. I want to take this time for our listening audience that if this is serving you today, if this is helping you, please take a moment to like, to subscribe, drop us a comment about how your interactions are happening, how your communication is transpiring and transforming throughout this time, because we want to hear from you. We want to know that this is serving you today.
Yes.
Yes. This is so good, Jonathan. And that's really a good point, because I remember my husband and I have been together for 11 years this year. We're going into our 11th year as husband and
Congratulations.
wife.
Yeah.
And we dated 8 years before that. So we're
Wow.
pushing 20 years already, which is really exciting. And my little brother always used to tell me, I just want a relationship like yours.
Mm.
And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, we don't do anything special. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, you just seem so like good all the time. And I don't know what it is. And we started analyzing it at one point, and we finally realized it's because we talk. We
Mm.
talk all the time about everything. Like,
Mhm.
if something bothers me, I'm just like, I really don't like when you do that.
Yeah.
Could you not?
Stop it quickly.
And he's like, oh, sorry, and he does, and it's great. And like, we have friends over and they'll complain about something that the other one does that drives the other one crazy, and I just am like, I got nothing to contribute here. Like, as long as you say it, like, and things move once you say it, then there's nothing else to really talk about. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting. It does all come down to communication, even in business as well.
Well, and it's interesting because if you look at both relationship and business, especially the example you just used with you and your husband, there is something to be said about communication. The words we use are very important, but there's one more thing, and I imagine that this is probably true with your husband. So feel free to tell me if it is or isn't. Feel free to stump me at any moment.
Okay.
Is that when he or you say something or you bring up one of these issues, the other person takes it to heart and they act on it.
Yeah, there's a real moment of, oh shit, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't know I was making you feel that way. Or,
Right.
gosh, that sucks. I'll try and not do that again, because I don't want you to feel like that. Like,
Mhm.
we don't want each other to feel angry, sad, frustrated, disappointed.
Yeah.
And so we want to change whatever it is that's making the other one feel that way, so they don't feel that again.
Exactly. Right. Because your words and your actions, they match.
Mhm.
I have seen so many people, so many relationships go south, whether it's in business. It's actually especially in business, because I don't know if you've ever had this experience of having a group project, doing all of the work, and having someone just sit back and they go, yeah, I'll show up. And then they just never do. And you just want to shake them.
Mm.
But that's because their words and their actions don't match. Their integrity is out, and there's no trust. And when there's no trust in a relationship, that relationship starts to go downhill. With business, if you and I are in a business together and you say, Jonathan, I need you to come up with a 5-page pitch today and get back to me by the end of the day with the 5 pages. If I don't show up with those 5 pages by the end of the day, or I don't even show up with communication, say, listen, 5 pages may be a lot. Like, I'm going to do the best I can. I'll see what I have, right? Or I'm really stuck on page 3. If I'm not in communication and I show up with nothing, all I have done now is just damage the relationship. All I've done is show to you that I can't be trusted. And that can really be the downfall of any relationship you have, whether it's business, friendships, romance. If someone shows up late once and they call you from the car and they say, hey, listen, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. I'm really sorry. I'm stuck in traffic. Then you're not sitting there for 10 minutes. Go, where are they?
Did they just blow me off? What's the deal? Yeah.
Right. I myself have sat for almost 45 minutes in a restaurant just going, it's our anniversary. where she's supposed to be here and she's not. And the waiter comes in, sir, can I interest you in some food? Yes, you can. I am very interested in food. I am so hungry, but I have to wait. Right. And lo and behold, she shows up and she doesn't acknowledge it at all. And it's like, hey man, we got some problems here. But that trust can be built. It just takes time. It takes energy and it takes effort. In the relationship seminar that I is about to come out, we walk through every single step of showing up, how to communicate, both listening and speaking into that person's listening, and how to build trust. Because the best relationships are built that if I say something to my wife, she was going to go, just as like you said, you know what? I'm sorry I did that. I see what you're saying. I'm going to work on it. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. We're still going to make mistakes because we are all perfectly imperfect people, just doing the best we can.
Right.
But if I walk up to someone, and I actually did this with her when we met at Guilford, woo, Guilford. I said to her, I said, listen, I think there can be something really beautiful here. And she had a string of really bad relationships. And I said, let me prove to you what I can do, who I can be for us. And I said, so what do you need? What would prove to you that I am worth taking a risk on? I said, you don't have to get emotionally all in it right now, but like, what can I do? And she said, I want you to text me every night before you go to bed and every morning when you wake up. Good night and good morning. And I said, done. And you know what? I had multiple alarms. I made sure, even if she was in China, right, or another country, I figured out the time zone difference. I texted her and I did it. And you know what? That built a very strong foundation, because then when I said something, when I said the word chair, it was almost like a chair came out of my mouth because my integrity was so high. And that can really make good relationships.
I love that, because if we took that into business, what would it take to prove to you that I'm worth investing in?
Yeah.
What would that do for your business to grow? What would that do for your integrity with your relationships with your clients? Like, as a marketing person, I always relate things back to business because that's just where I live. And we find that in business relationships are a lot like dating. When you're in a committed relationship with them, you're in a committed dating relationship with them. When you're getting to know them, you're just taking them out to coffee. Right. And there's this different level of intensity. But if we could use that language of, what do I need to do to show you that I am who I say I am? I walk the line that I say I walk. What that would translate to, how much deeper, how much better, how much more rewarding can those relationships be?
Yeah. And how much more successful could your business be? Especially because if you think about people, right? As you were saying, hiring someone on is like going on a date with them, right? You see them, you interview them, you ask them questions. And if you don't like their answer, you don't go on a second date.
Right.
Right. If they're like, let's say they ask you, what time do you go to bed? Right. And you say, oh, usually around 11. And they'd be like, yeah, I know. You'd be like, that was a red flag.
That's a bit creepy. Are you sitting in my bush? What's going on?
How exactly do you know this? Right. Oh, well, I just, I scoped you out. You know what? We're done with this date. It's good, right? Or if someone comes in and they, you say, we value timeliness. We value people getting here early and getting through the work they need to do in a timely manner. And they say, yeah, I come in late a couple of times, but I promise my work is really good. It's like, ooh, well, I'm going to say probably not the best fit.
See, but that comes down to knowing yourself again, right? You just mentioned a core value. You have to know what your core values are that allow you to walk into that integrity, that allow you to walk into that alignment.
Yes.
That allow you to have those transparent conversations. So identifying core values is really core to having a good relationship with yourself and others.
Yeah. Right. And that's true in business and in relationships, like in relationships, right? One of the things I was talking to, especially with certain individuals, is we get into romance, intimacy, sex, like all this stuff. And oftentimes people hold all that stuff in, right? They don't necessarily tell you. They wait for you to find out what they like or what they don't like. And you know what? Here's the thing again, they're going to guess for a long time, and their guessing may be really frustrating. And so if you share it, you're going to be more likely, like, if you say, you know what, tonight, this is a big thing for couples. What do you want for dinner? Right.
The famous question of all
Right.
time.
And imagine if your partner, instead of just going, well, I don't know, they just said, you know what, I'm really thinking pizza tonight. Right? It's like, oh, all right, pizza it is. They're not like, well, would you like Indian or Italian or, well, maybe Italian. Okay, spaghetti. It's like, instead of just doing it, just say what you want, right? Because by having those core values, by having those abilities to just be honest with each other and say, this is what works for me. This is what I like. This is the direction we're taking our business. This is the end goal we see in sight. Then that could be a really powerful way to see, not only are you on the same page, but if you start to, let's say, fall down, let's say you get too tired because you're working really hard, long hours, they can stand for you and they can say, listen, you know what? Let's just keep our eye on the prize. Let's keep moving. We're almost there. What can I do to support you? And then when they say that, don't go, nothing, I'm fine. Just give me a minute to breathe. No, you're like, oh, okay, great. This is what I need to do. This is how I need to do it. Could you please just take this from me? It makes it a little bit easier, and I would be very grateful, because then you'll get there and it'll be successful. Doesn't mean it's always perfect, right? Part of standing up with someone is standing up to someone. When you say, listen, we're no longer in alignment. I tell people all the time, especially when it comes to relationships, the Beatles lied. Love is not all you need, right? You need so much more. You need to be honest with each other. You need to sometimes be that, the fire under them. You need to be the person who is there to cry with them. You need to be the person that stands up, looks them in the face and says, you know what? I know you. I know what you're capable of. And you and we can do better.
Mm, yeah. And what's so good about that, the whole conversation with dinner is it can still be frustrating.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
you could be like, I feel kind of like this or that,
Yeah.
until you really like identify, well, what's the difference or what's the similarities between those three things?
Uh-huh.
And you start practicing like finding what the similarities are, then you can say, yeah, I just feel like burgers.
Yeah. I actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because I actually made a shortcut for this, especially with people who are really indecisive about dates or food or what to do. So I have what's called a date box. And what I did was I went and I made this for my wife for, I think it was her birthday or an anniversary or something like that. And I got Chinese food containers, empty Chinese food containers. And what
Clean too.
Clean, empty, pristine. Actually, I even drew on them. So like I have an adventure box, right? One that's for like outings and adventures, things that we'll do. And I drew the two of us because I went to an art school. So I drew them, us on the front, like, casting spells and with a big sword and all this and like going on adventures. And what I did was I have one for dates and I have one for adventures. And I looked around and I just researched for about 3 or 4 weeks, just a little bit every day. Every time I would hear something cool, right? So it's like bowling. Okay. And I'd take out a little slip of paper and I'd write that down. And then what I did is I'd fold that paper up and I'd have 4 colors: blue, green, yellow, red. Blue is free. Yellow. Oh, no. So blue is free. Green is like small amounts of money. Yellow is a little moderate. Red is pretty expensive. And I would mark what each of those activities was worth. And I would tape them, staple them, whatever, shut, and I'd put them in the box. So when you need something to do, all you have to do is say, let's go to the adventure box. You take it down, right? You can fill it with restaurants or whatever. And all you have to do, open it up, reach your hand in, look at the color. Are you willing to spend this much money? If so, open it up. And now you have a whole new adventure planned for you, because you already did all the groundwork. And if you like that place, it was really good. You know what you do? You just put tape on it, drop it back in the box. shake it up, and you have, 20, 30, 40. I think I have like 80 different ideas in this little box that you can just reach in, grab, and it's like, hey, tonight, let's go on an adventure. I don't know what we're going to have. You don't know what we're going to have. Let's look it up. Okay, Thai food. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. I love it. And there's a modified version of that that's out there with like, the sticks that the doctors used to use on your tongue to check the back of your
Oh,
throat.
sure. Mm-hmm.
The tongue depressors, I think is what they're called. If you write on the tongue depressor the idea and you put them in a mason jar.
Oh, cool. That'll
like
work too.
A regular old mason jar.
Yeah.
And you put them in there and you just shake up the mason jar and you close your eyes and you pull a stick out and whatever it is. And they can color code them too with like markers if you wanted to. But
yeah,
same idea. I love it though.
And it's just easy because then it's like, okay, instead of figuring out what we want to do, it's like, all right, are you up for an adventure? Yes, good. Let's just leave it up to pure chance, right? Shake, 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 and have some crazy things in there. Like one is a picnic in a park. We had that once, and you know what? We were like, okay, we need to have a picnic, so we gathered up all our stuff and went and had a picnic. It's just, that whimsy can also bring a little more life and excitement into your relationship as well.
That's fantastic. So you have a relationship course coming out, and you also have a little freebie. Do you want to tell our audience about this freebie gift that you have? Since we are coming up on Valentine's Day, it's getting kind of close.
Yes. So, as we know, Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and this is one of the biggest days of the year for people to make big, grand, romantic gestures. But the thing is that sometimes those big, grand, romantic gestures either don't work, fall flat, or even if they work perfectly, they cause a huge amount of stress. Because sometimes we struggle mightily to figure out what do we want to do, how we want to do it, and all the planning can lead to a lot of upset. And for years, I've been asked to help and plan people's dates, not only for my friends, but for people who come in. They're like, just make a date, right? Write it on a piece of paper and hand it to me. And so by using all this practice, not only with myself, but with people around me, I've created a list of must-dos and must-don'ts to help your Valentine's Day go better. These are just simple things that we can do so that we aren't going to get stuck into the same anxious, stressful trap. So this is a free gift for everyone listening, and I'm sharing my 5 must-dos with you. These are tools that work all the time. And they're simple things. They're things that you might not expect, but once you start using them, it will make all of your dates for Valentine's Day or otherwise work perfectly. I've used them so many times. So to claim this gift, go to bit.ly/myvalentinelist, no space. Again, that's bit.ly/myvalentinelist, no spaces, to get this free gift, because each and every one of us has Valentine's things that we want to do. We have this sort of burning desire. Not only that, but it will allow you to just have a little less stress and a little more romance in your life. I suppose you could do that with your business too, but that might be ethically not sound. So just keep it in dating and romance.
Yeah, you might want to table the romantic side of the business. Depending on who you are and where you are in the country. Who knows? This has been absolutely wonderful, Jonathan. Thank you so much for the free gift.
Thank you for coming.
I have 2 more questions for you before I let you go for the day.
What's
going to be the best way for people to get in touch with you? Because I know they're just like, holy crap, mind blown. I need to figure out how I can get back in touch with myself, find my truth, and figure out how to better communicate with the people around me so that we can have amazing relationships. What's going to be the way for them to contact you for that?
Okay, so a really good way is to go to my website, jonathanyatsky.com. So Jonathan, Jonathan, Yatsky, YATSKY.com. There you can get on my mailing list and you can contact me directly. Also, like you said at the beginning, I do Facebook Lives. Every week, I do one at 8 p.m. on Monday, which is a movie club Monday, where we look at your favorite movies. Some of these are called classics. Some of these are things that people watch every single year for stuff. And we look at them and take life lessons that we can learn from them into our own lives. So we distill down all the good, juicy bits, and we get to rewatch some of our favorite movies. And that's a great discussion. I also have a Thoughtful Thursday on Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where I take a topic, usually from something that people write in or they ask me about, and I cover that topic to give people more tools, tips, and tricks to help you live your happiest, healthiest life. So those are two really good ways to find me. Also, you can get on my mailing list at jonathanyatsky.com to make sure that you are first for the relationship seminar that we have coming up, because trust me, you will not want to miss it. If you want your relationship to be better, stronger, and go further, you will not want to miss that seminar.
Yes. You have an early bird special on that too that'll launch. When does that launch?
I believe that launches in 2 weeks. But if you get on the email chain, you will be the first to know, because we want to make sure that everyone gets the chance to get this. And early bird pricing means that those who are quickest, the early birds who get up, will get the worm, and they will get such incredible value. We've been working really hard and people love it already. And we want to share it with all of you guys.
So exciting. Thank you so much. This is definitely a great time to get on that email list, so don't miss out that opportunity. I'll make sure to include all of the links that he just said in the description in YouTube for those of you that are watching live on YouTube and are like, holy crap, I didn't write it down fast enough. It's okay. We got you. It'll be in the description in just a little bit.
Yes.
Last question for you, Jonathan. What's one thing that you wish you knew when you were getting started? Like, if you could go back and give your early self advice, what advice would you give your early self?
I think the thing that I would remember, and the advice I would give myself, is that, well, it would be two pieces. The first would be to, so many of us are focused on creating a life that we forget to live said life.
Yeah.
We let the stresses, the anxiousness, we let the deadlines get to us, and we forget to enjoy life. And so that would be the first thing. The second thing that I would say would be, especially for me, would be that it is okay not to be a straight A student. It's okay to fail spectacularly, and it's okay to go forward and just do your best, because we are all perfectly imperfect people just doing the best we can. And if we can do that and we can accept that in ourselves and in other people, I think we can get to a better place.
Absolutely. Great, great pieces of advice. Remember to stop and smell the roses, and also remember that it's okay to fail. I know when we're in school, we're taught that failure is bad, but it's actually really good in life and business. Fail fast, fail often, fail forward, so that you can keep growing and keep learning, and welcome those failure opportunities, welcome those challenges.
Yes.
Because they will provide you the tools, the tips, the habits, the techniques that you need to not fall into that failure again.
Exactly.
So good. I so appreciate the time with you. For those of you listening, if this was valuable today, please let us know. Comment below. We want to make sure that we keep delivering content for you every week that's going to help you fail faster, move forward, grow, and build your best life, your best business, so that you too can find the success you are seeking. Until next time, everybody, I'm Terry Watkins.